I can't speak for the students, but I would imagine they would be ecstatic to be part of different organizations. And I know that the survey was just the first step, and I'm really admired by the courage of these young people with how much leadership they are taking to want to go further. And they recognize that this is not a one-year process. This is not, we're dealing with equity in 1 year. They recognize that this is multi-year, and this is something that needs to pervade our culture as we give these students a voice and ensure that they do participate with local organizations such as the NAACP and others. So yes, I would definitely say they would be quite excited.
Okay, so I'd like to look into that sometime in the future then, and see if we might be able to make that happen.
Okay.
I had another question, but you can come back to me later because I've just forgotten it.
Okay. All right. Dr. Whitmire, stand by. Dr. Lusk.
I'm so grateful to hear about what's going on in our district as it relates to ethnic studies. Board member Mayor Mpusd and I were, contacted several weeks ago, about a month ago actually, and I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to put on the agenda for this meeting our ethnic studies position at this time. My goal is to, in working with CSBA and the State Board of Education, and we know that on Thursday, I know, Ms. Aguiana, you know that there will be the presentation of the state model for ethnic studies, which will kind of be the guide for all of us as district. Am I correct in that? Yes, thank you. Could you respond to that? I know you're working.
Yes, the framework came out just last month, I believe, and then it will be going actually August 13th for more discussion. And of course, the ethnic studies course will evolve with what the state is requiring. At this point, it's been back and forth for so long, and we felt there was a need to move forward, that we develop this course, and then it will evolve as well.
Okay. One of the things that I just want to share is that there was a Zoom meeting on Saturday. I did not attend that meeting, but there were board of directors from CSBA, and we had just agreed that it needs to go to the California School Boards Association, and who works in conjunction with the State Board of Education. And after hearing the presentation on Thursday, we are hoping that we will get some specific direction as it relates to ethnic studies for districts throughout California. So with that being said, resolutions have been a student from UC Berkeley has asked us for a resolution, which we do not plan to participate in at this point, because the driver of this car will be the State Board of Education and the model that they agree on. And I don't think it's going to be Thursday, but that model will guide that model will guide the state of California as it relates to ethnic studies, and it becoming basically a graduation requirement, and specifically a strand that will be placed on our master schedules from freshman, sophomore, required number of credits and what have you. That's the goal. I'm not sure where we'll go from here. I'm so grateful for the work that we're doing, and I hope that we can support as a board to have this move forward, actually, without having a state model at this point. This mask is really fun to talk through. So I hope that I didn't sound too unclear, but thank you, and thank the students. I know that Alice Jordan has a mentorship program at Seaside High School, and how can we virtually support you, Mr. Aguiana, as we move forward? Kind of similar to Ms. Miles' question, but specifically that is in place. So how can we support you?
Most definitely. Actually, our last meeting was planned for the Friday right before everything was closed down. So at that point in time, we had to cancel that meeting for the obvious reasons of what occurred as COVID came in. That the orders came in locally. But yes, virtual meetings sounds like an imperative coming up here, especially as we start the school year, making sure that Ms. Jordan's group, and I know Dr. Lesky's been involved with them as well, and providing that virtual opportunity to meet with students. We're actually doing a school-wide rally at Seaside High School tomorrow, so we're going to work out kind of what it looks like to do that in a virtual setting, but we definitely want to ensure that throughout the course of the school year that we're welcoming our community organizations into our classrooms, and also to our students out and connecting with those organizations. And that's why it's so essential to have a course like this where students can have the tools to learn the tools to engage better with more adults in various organizations.
Thank you, thank you. Were some of the students in your group a part of the mentorship program in past years?
So
Mrs. Jordan.
Yeah, so our current cohort are juniors, and I know that one of the students in the video actually did participate in one of the events last year. And so one thing that's exciting is that we do have a lot of our young people who are taking advantage of the mentorship from our local community to ensure that they are taking leadership positions.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Whitmire.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward today. I'm, looking at the questionnaire data. The majority of our students don't see themselves reflected in our curriculum, and I really appreciate that you're looking at a student-centered and student-led approach to topics that they want to explore. But I'm thinking about how we thoughtfully push students toward uncomfortable topics, and more specifically, I'm thinking about the 20% of our students who are white, and are we going to talk with them about the history of white supremacy in the United States and content around things like concepts of anti-racism and so on. I want to make sure that this isn't a curriculum that lets white kids off the hook in terms of not understanding the history of how we got to where we are today. Has there been any conversation around that kind of thing, or has the focus mostly been on letting our students of color explore concepts and topics of interest to them?
No, that's a wonderful question. Thank you for bringing that up, because I think that is an integral part to these conversations that need to happen in ethnic studies. Need to be rigorous, and they will be uncomfortable at times. And we do have, thankfully, we have some student leaders who have been trained that participate, for example, in the diversity leadership training we had during the spring. And so we want to ensure that we are explicitly teaching those tools to how to have those conversations respectfully. And so the ethnic studies course does include a historical component, and it is essential to address privilege and what that means, and how that has advantaged certain groups more than others and disadvantaged other groups. We did want to make sure, though, that we balance this course with a combination of history, but also too with the giving students the tools to be successful, to be the agents of change by participating in civic engagement. And our goal of having this as a freshman requirement is that gives them tools as a freshman, so over the next 3 years, they can become the club leaders, the leaders in the community, that they are engaging in active practice. So this course is very much so about inquiry, about how to ask the right questions and how to do so respectfully.
Great, thank you. I'd love to just keep up to date on the curriculum as it evolves, maybe just via our packet or more presentations down the line. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ms. Miramontes. Ms. Miles, I'll come back to you.
Yes, sí, me encanta mucho. So thank you so much for bringing this forward. I wrote something down that I just want to read real fast, just a sentence, but hearing the presentation makes me think about being identified in education through our cultural successes at an early start of learning. Let me read that again. Being identified in education through our cultural success at an early start of learning will break the cycle of systemic racism. So that just came to mind as I was hearing this, and It is unfortunate we weren't able to hear the equity task force team. So please, if we can just get that mailed out to us, even being able to have that posted online and shared and celebrated, I think is really important. But yeah, I think the ongoing of evolution and making sure that this is a learning opportunity to grow and always in draft form and always knowing that we can make it better is really important. And then just knowing that you guys are doing things with students is really powerful and strong. And I'm happy to hear about this equity task force team. And maybe it's something we could make as a district club and they can move forward and connect with the community as they grow. But I'm excited and just want to thank you guys for sharing this with us. And I agree with everybody and with Amanda too, to just keep us posted on how it's going to evolve and how we can support it.
Okay. Ms. Gramsbacher, did you have
It's
anything?
really powerful
Go ahead.
and strong, and I'm happy to
Yes,
hear
thank
about
you very much. So I was briefly reading through the table of contents in the text for the course. I don't see it, so I need to ask. I assume you will be covering the current state of affairs in civil rights justice, civil rights in our country right now, and particularly how that's being attacked from various sides, starting with the right to vote. So we have the history of how we got here, which is very important, but I'm hoping that we're going to provide the tools for the students to evaluate their current situation in their life, not only to have a sense of pride in who they are, but also the tools to know how they can guarantee that civil rights and in the eye of justice, that they can, in their own community, in their own context, do to ensure that. I'd like to see how, in other words, how we use the history mirrored in today's current political climate to empower the students to implement change, not only in their lives, but in the community.
I really appreciate the question about the history component, because even though history is imperative in understanding ethnic studies, ethnic studies as a course is not a history class. It has to be very much so about how are we moving forward, knowing what we know about the past. And I believe one of the students in the video said that we need to understand the patterns of history, but we need to interrupt those patterns. And this course is about how do we give students the tools, how do we empower them to use those tools to move forward and to not just learn about, to participate in these. We're certainly living in a time where there's this is coming to the forefront even more so, and I think we can take advantage of that even more and recognize that this is an iteration of the course and it is a draft form. But as it is a draft form, that we engage students to participate and act rather than to passively be participants in the class.
Okay. Ms. Miles, go ahead.
Oh, I had a follow-up question.
Go ahead, Ms. Gramsbacher. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So the course description, you said it came to us in May. Is it available for viewing on our website? And I assume it's A through G, that taking the course will satisfy social studies requirement for college. Is that correct?
Yes, it actually qualifies as a G, and it is a course that is recognized by the UC and CSU. Currently, we're updating our course outline to be ready to go and will be online, but all of our course descriptions are available for viewing.
I would appreciate it then if the Board of Education, could get a draft of all the chapters, the content that will be taught in this course once it's finalized. I assume pretty soon that we're going to be teaching it this year.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that what we just talked about, the tools, I'd like to see where the students in the end are given the opportunity to start to strategize how they can apply what they have learned in history to help fix the current day problems that are impacting the right to civil justice in our nation.
Yes, and just a couple things. I think Mr. Aguinaga was talking about the teachers that have been meeting along the way. So they've been developing the units and using the textbook as a framework for that. But there are other opportunities for different kinds of lessons and for things to evolve from that. But they have been meeting fairly regularly over the summer. And so we can share that information with you. The other piece is that this is a semester course for freshmen. And some of these topics are not going to be able to be resolved in one semester. And I think we all recognize that the work is ahead of us. And I'd just like to reiterate, too, what Andrew was saying about teaching history versus teaching ethnic studies. You need to understand the history, but ethnic studies really is looking at the now and moving forward. And so this is our opportunity to start.
Okay. Ms. Miles.
Thank you. And also thank you to Mrs. Grammersbacher and to, gosh, no, I just went blank here. My questions have been posed. Thank you for the responses. I do want to say thank you to Mrs. Wadecki, because I started reading that A Different Mirror by Ronald Takaki. And so that kind of, it does show a history of how we got here. I've only just delved into it, probably only as far as about 60 pages. It is very readable. I find it very interesting, flows very well. And it shows how racism has always been with us. So I think that text will help to lead discussions into some areas that may be very uncomfortable. But I think that from what I've read so far, that it's an excellent text to have as part of the curriculum. And also, I'm hoping that we can get a copy of what's being presented right now on screen, a handout. I'd like to have a hard copy if that can be sent to us as well. Thank you.
Okay, I saw head nods. That will get sent out. Okay, as well as a link to the videos so that everybody can watch those since they couldn't hear them. If we would, that'd be great. Dr. Lusk, you had something else?
I just want to ask any board members that are available on Thursday to really go to the State Board of Education website and listen in on the presentation of the ethnic studies model. Well, this draft. There have been the release of draft 1 and 2 occurred a few days ago, but this is the committee that will be doing the presentation to the State Board of Education, and it's really important to have input from trustees throughout the state of California on what should or should not be kept in this draft. So anyone having the time, the link is available, but I'll give Denise the address and she can send it out to board members, because your input is critical on this draft that's going to be presented on Thursday.
Do you happen to know what time that's going to be presented?
I don't want to give the incorrect time. I think it's going to be, the board meeting is quite long, but this presentation, it has a specific time. I'll send that link to her before I leave today so that she can forward it to board members.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on this item? Any other questions? None? Anybody? Hands? No? Okay, any public, there's no public comment on this item, I would assume. Okay, all right. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and are acted on by the Board of Trustees in one motion. There's no discussion of these items before the board vote unless a member of the board, staff, or public requests specific items to be discussed and/or removed from the consent agenda. It's understood that the administration recommends approval of all consent items on the consent agenda. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the board members shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. Board members, are there any items on the consent agenda that you wish to be pulled for further discussion or have clarifying questions on? Nope. None? None? And we've lost Dr. Whitmire. At least we've lost her video. There she is. She's back. Okay. So then I will ask for a motion on the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll
Have a
second.
Okay, have a motion from Ms. Askew and a second from Dr. Whitmire. Any further discussion? Is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
Yes, we have 3.
Okay, go ahead.
I am appalled that Mpusd is paying Planned Parenthood to come into our district where Planned Parenthood plans on giving out gift cards for money off services. We have so limited funds in our budget and we are choosing to allow this. This is nuts. I've had a chance to preview the curriculum and teaching about anal sex and how to do it is not our job as a district, but parents' job. Planned Parenthood will say they're just teaching the safety of it, but is that really the mission of Mpusd? This is outrageous. I am so terribly embarrassed our district is allowing this. Please reconsider the contract you have with them. There are other ways to provide safe sex talk without encouraging our young children to get abortions without parent consent. Thank you, G. Hensler. Planned Parenthood Marmonte's contract for teaching comprehensive sex ed to our middle and high school students brings up some questions. Why is our district bringing in an outside contractor that requests exorbitant amounts of education dollars away from our students during a time of pandemic and distance learning? When the district is already struggling financially, we should be funding students, not wealthy organizations. Another issue I'd like to address is the lack of transparency by Planned Parenthood Marmonte towards parents in the binders for viewing curricula content. When parents viewed the Planned Parenthood Marmonte middle school and high school curricular materials at the Mpusd office, they were surprised to learn that transparency was greatly lacking. Images of slides are not labeled at all and appear as pictures rather than a video which will be shown. Such slides are not labeled and do not include links below to know which organization they derive from. No links or labels also eliminates the parent from previewing the content in advance. Additionally, none of the provided web links in the other pages of the curricula work. If young students are worried that their parents will find out about an upcoming appointment, they are notified by Planned Parenthood that they are protected under California law, which allows a student at age 12 to leave campus without parental consent or notification to obtain any of their services. Planned Parenthood goes a step further in offering our students gift cards if they are willing to make an appointment to come see them. Other parents have said that this may be a $5 Starbucks card. Since when is it appropriate to have an organization in our classes that bribes students to become their lifelong customers? Some of the content our students are taught does not have a scientific foundation, but it does encourage a positive new focus on the rights of sexual pleasure. Our 7th graders will learn rigid gender stereotypes. Those who adhere to strict gender norms are more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior, including unsafe sex. Healthier, less restrictive gender norms can create healthier sexual interactions. This is from the Planned Parenthood Marmonte Middle School curriculum. Students in our middle schools will also be taught Planned Parenthood Marmonte's HIV risk continuum, which includes no risk topics like body rubbing, grinding with clothes on, masturbation, wet kissing, dry kissing, and they are taught that a low medium risk activity is anal sex with a condom, despite the serious concerns of disease and infection transmission that may occur because condoms are not FDA approved for use in anal sex. Another low medium risk activity for middle school students to hear is having sex with a partner who is HIV positive, who takes anti-HIV medication. This does not appear to be scientifically accurate, age appropriate, or worthy of thousands of education tax dollars. I urge you to seek other options for our precious educational funds during this COVID-19 time and fund students, not wealthy organizations. Oh, sorry, this was from Kelly S.
Okay.
Dear Mpusd Board, I understand that a new contract is under consideration at tonight's board meeting. I strongly oppose approval of a new contract to Planned Parenthood Marmonte for providing sex education to our schools. My children attend Dual Language Academy of the Monterey Peninsula. My reasons are listed below. 1, sex education should not be conducted by a third-party organization. 2, use of Planned Parenthood for this topic is use of for a for-profit organization that actively markets for new clients. It is a clear conflict of interest. 3, Mpusd's budget has been significantly restricted due to the COVID-19 health crisis, which makes every dollar even more valuable and limited. Payment to a third party for these services is an unwise and unnecessary use of funds. 4, Planned Parenthood's philosophy towards sex education is imbalanced and does not represent all the choices that reflect our family's philosophies. It also goes too far into detail and as a result trains our children to think they are supposed to have sex. It also strips away natural innocence and modesty that guard children. It does not teach the children to feel comfortable saying no. 5, opting my children out from this health unit does not protect my children from hearing part of the material from fellow students outside of class. Thank you for considering my family's concerns with respect to these risks.
Okay. That's the end of public comments. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? There was.
Yeah, you
Was there?
Yeah,
Did I miss it?
Amanda and
I apologize.
Wendy and
It was, yes, it was Askew was the motion and Whitmire was the second. Thank you for my getting my memory back to me. Okay, so then may I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Hi.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Groundspecker,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lance,
I.
Wendy Rudis-Few,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire,
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, next conference discussion and action. We have a public hearing to approve tentative agreement between Monterey Peninsula Unified School District and Monterey Bay Teachers Association, concluding negotiations for the 2019-2020 school year. I will open the public hearing. Any public comment? Anything? Nothing? Okay, I will close the public hearing. Next, discuss and approve tentative agreement between the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District and the Monterey Bay Teachers Association, concluding negotiations for the 2019-2020 school year.
Good evening, President Jennings, Superintendent from Bottom Board of Trustees. So before you is the tentative agreement that we reached with our MBTA association. AB 200 was presented to the board in public on August 11th. They ratified it with their membership on August 2nd. Included in the agreement is the total compensation for 1920, 2% on schedule, retroactively to July 1, 2019. For 2021, a 1% reduction to the salary schedule effective July 1st, 2020. And for 2021, 1% off schedule payable on before January 31, 2021. We've also had articles on organizational security regarding the association and its members. And then we had an article on class size with regards to reduction and local control funding formula.
Okay, are there any questions on this item? Okay, any public comment on this item? No public comment? No questions from the board members? Is there a motion on this item? Go ahead, Ms. Askew.
Are we just hosting a public hearing? Do we need a motion for public hearing?
No, we've already held the public hearing. We had no public, so now we are discussing approve.
So I'll move approval.
Okay, have a motion from Ms. Askew. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Have a second from Ms. Miramontes. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Groundspecker,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Rudick,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item C, discuss and approve updated salary schedule for management employees to reflect Monterey Bay Teachers Association tentative agreement on compensation for the 2020-2021 school year.
Similar before you is the updated salary schedule for management to reflect the MBTA agreement that we have. It's usually a Me Too. So it's in the same structure for 1920, 2% on schedule retroactively to July 1st, 2019. 2021, a 1% reduction, and then 2021, a 1% off schedule payable on or before January 31. And the schedule is attached there to your packet as well.
Okay, are there any questions on this item? Any public comment on this item? Is there a motion on this item? Ms. Miles?
I'd like to move approval of the updated salary schedule for management employees for the 2021 school year.
Okay, I have a motion from Ms. Miles. Is there
A second.
And a second from Dr. Lusk. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Groundspecker,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Wendy Rudick,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda, I have to read a statement here for the next agenda item. In the next agenda item, the district will consider approving P.K. Diffenbaugh's 2020-2021 employment agreement as superintendent of the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. The summary of the financial terms are as follows. The term of the employment agreement as superintendent will be a 4-year term that will begin on July 1, 2020 and extend to June 30th, 2024. The base salary of the superintendent for the 2019-2020 school year was $220,095 and will remain the same for the 2020-2021 school year. The superintendent will continue to be paid a doctoral stipend of $500 a year. The superintendent will have a new salary schedule for the term of his contract, which reflects a 2% increase in his base salary each year. The superintendent will continue to provide the same, will continue to be provided with the same health insurance benefits that are provided to certificated management employees in the district. The superintendent will continue to be paid his monthly allowance of $700 for acquisition, maintenance, insurance, and fuel for an automobile to be used for district business conducted within the Monterey County. Travel outside Monterey County will be reimbursed in accordance with district policy. He will continue to be paid a monthly allowance of $100 for the acquisition and use of cell phone for district business. The district will pay the superintendent's membership for the Association of California School Administrators and to California Association of School Business Officials. The superintendent will continue to have a work year of 223 days with no vacation days. The contract provides that the board may terminate the superintendent without cause, but if that right is exercised, by the board, the district will pay the superintendent his salary and benefits for a period not to exceed 12 months or the remainder of the term of his contract, whichever is less. The provision previously provided for a buyout of the superintendent's contract of 18 months. This change reflects a change in the law which limits the administrator's contract buyout to 12 months or the remainder of the term, whichever is less. Now, the agenda item, discuss and approve second amendment of the employment agreement for PK Diffenbaugh to serve as superintendent. Are there any questions? You all received the amendment. Are there any questions or comments on the amendment? Dr. Whitmire.
Just real quick, PK's amazing. And I think what probably people didn't hear in all of that statement is that he voluntarily did not take a pay raise this year. And I think that is admirable. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody who's out there heard that.
Absolutely. Any other comments on that item? And I'll just say, PK, I'm glad you're still here and
Thank you.
don't plan on going anywhere
All right.
unless you want broken legs.
Thumbs up.
Okay. All right. So on this item, is there a motion to approve the second amendment to the employment agreement for Dr. Diffenbaugh?
I'll move approval.
You have a second?
I'll second.
Too late. We have a motion from Ms. Askew and a second from Dr. Lusk. May I have a roll call, please? Oh, was there any public comment on this item? Okay, may I have a roll call?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Gramsbecker,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Winnie Rudaskew,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire,
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to E, discuss and approve the hiring of short-term classified employees for the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program per guidelines under Education Code 45103.
Yeah, this item is coming to you as planning, as we continue to plan for our expanded learning program that we're offering for our employees. If we see an increase, there's an education code 45103 that allows us to hire short-term employees, and short-term employees are for a limited period of time, but it does need to come to you for approval. These employees will be hired as such and will be terminated at the end of the school year because they'll be on a short-term contract, also known as a temporary contract.
Okay, are there any questions on this item from the board? No? Any public comment on this item? Okay, this is discuss and approve. Is there a motion for this item?
So move.
Okay, have a motion from Dr. Lusk. Is there a second?
That.
Second from Ms. Miles. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Gramsbecker,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Winnie Rudaskew,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire,
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. All right, next, discuss and approve supplemental agreement with DCA Architects for architectural design services for the Seaside High School campus-wide fire alarm replacement project. Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I'll turn it over to Mr. Altemeyer, and we do have Mr. Anderson online.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so on this one, it is Seaside High has 4 or 5, I believe it's 4, independent fire alarm systems on the campus. 3 of them are older than 20 years old, and it doesn't make sense to have a fire alarm system on a huge campus that are independent. So in other words, if somebody pulls the fire alarm in the admin office, the people in the gym don't know about it. So most campuses try to have a uniform one fire alarm for the whole campus, so everybody on the campus knows that there's an issue and an emergency. So that's what we're trying to do here. One of the things that were included in this, we have RM that's doing most of the design work. We need DCA to take the design work to DSA and get it DSA approved, because usually electrical engineers are not allowed to do it. It has to be an architect. But what we included in this is a $22,000 investigation to make sure that the conduits that we currently have now, we can pull wires out and reuse, and where we can't, we have to put in new conduit. So this is one of the first examples of where we're trying to get a contractor, have full information on a system prior to it going to bid, so we have less issues when they can't get new wire through an existing conduit. So that's what this one's for.
Okay, are there questions on this item? Okay, me being a fire alarm guy, I can tell you, I saw the price and choked a little bit for design only, but understanding Seaside High and its 4 systems and the code that says that 1 address, 1 fire alarm system, this will bring that to 2 code, which is good. So, okay, is there any, go ahead.
Amazingly, DSA does allow you to have standalone systems. It's ludicrous from a safety point of view.
Especially when the state fire marshal says you can't have. If you have 1 address, you have 1 system. So it's kind of odd. Okay. All right. So are there any other comments on this item? Is there any public comment on this item? No. Is there a motion on this item? Somebody? Anybody?
I move approval.
I second
Thank you.
that.
Motion from Dr. Luskin, a second from Ms. Miles. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Gramspecker,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty,
Aye.
Board Member Mpusd,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Motion carries unanimously. Next is discuss and ratify award of bid to DMC Commercial for Monterey High School gutters and downspouts. So,
Go ahead,
I
Mr.
think that's
Anderson.
it again.
okay.
So this is to replace downspouts and gutters that were leaking at the school. We're in the process of we finished the painting, and it didn't make sense to have ratty gutters that were leaking and downspouts that weren't going anywhere after we just painted the whole campus. So we figured we'd do the gutters while nobody was around and the downspouts while nobody was around and take advantage of it.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Ms. Askew?
Yeah, I just have a question in regards to, we had done some initial planning for our bond projects and included contingencies for sort of large, broad categories of investments that we wanted to be working on. Does this fit within one of those broad categories that were previously approved for expenditure? I know we're getting sort of the one-offs, and we approved the contracts for what we'd planned on doing, but on these situations where we have sort of, we got into the project and then we found, how are we billing that back to our broad overview of how we wanted to invest bond funding?
Yeah, so we had some very large categories called utilities and infrastructure. We had remodeling classrooms, we had remodeling buildings, and I'd say this one fell under remodeling buildings.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item? Any public comment on this item? Okay. Is there a motion on this item?
I move that we ratify award a bid to DMC Commercial for the Monterey High School gutters and downspout project.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miles. I have a motion from
Second.
second from Dr. Whitmire. Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Aye.
Board Member Owen Miles,
Aye.
President Tom Jenny,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Graham Tucker,
Yes.
Board Member West,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Wood-Askew,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Discuss and ratify DMC commercial change order number 5 for the Monterey High School Science and Innovation Project. Is that Mr. Anderson again?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Anderson? You have to unmute yourself,
Let me
Mr.
unmute first. Let me
There
unmute
you
first.
go.
I'm waiting for my computer to download the attachment and it's a little slow. Can we go on to the next item that I'm more familiar with while I have that being downloaded? Would that be appropriate?
Shouldn't really go out of order. We could get confused. Do you have that attachment handy, Ryan?
I do, and there's a lengthy attachment. Look at the details here.
That would explain why it's taking 10 minutes to download.
Gotta use some faster internet.
Boss says faster
Allowed
internet.
to work from home.
Can't work from home.
Yeah, guess you can't work from home anymore.
This is part of the Science and Innovation Center, the drainage that's under. There's several pictures in the attachment here. As you can see, there's a drainage issue. This is to address some of that storm drains in that project as the part of the ongoing construction that's happening with that larger Science and Innovation.
Okay.
Yeah, so on some of the, on that particular one, this drain was draining under the building for years. And it didn't make sense that we were right outside the building and not to put in a trench drain to capture the water and not continue to have it dump into the basement of the building nearby. That's one of them. We had excavation around the tank that we are finally paying for. Installing curbs in the electrical room that were not on the plans. Added a drain under the building pad. Again, this was for proper drainage so that we wouldn't have water collecting under our building. Revised the light inverters to be external of the fixtures instead of internal. And winterizing the site, we added rocks at the main entrance just to help with runoff and water diversion. We had to repair some of the pad during the rain event. We negotiated this one down considerably because typically the contractor is responsible for dewatering their site. So this was a compromise for them. And then we had the added scope for metal plate. This was metal plates that we had to install. We got a counter top that we got value and engineered the thickness of, so we got a little money back on that. And then we had the change in elevation that required an additional angle iron. That was minor, but it was missed on the plans. And added waterproofing on the acid tank and trench drain per another RFI. This was waterproofing that was not noted on the plans, We need to do it. We should do it. It'll help protect the site to last longer. And if we do it now, it's much less expensive than if M&O has to come back and deal with it in 10 years.
Okay. And that tank you were talking about was the one that they found underground, right? That was full of oil?
That's the one on item PCO 39. That was the excavation around the oil tank on the campus grounds.
All right. Are there any questions or comments on that item? Okay. All right. Is there a motion on this item to ratify?
I move ratification of this item.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion to ratify from Dr. Lusk. Is there a second?
I second that.
We have a second from Ms. Miles. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, may I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Grounds-Pepper,
Deborah, can you say that again? I don't think we heard.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Rudaskew,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire,
Aye.
All right. Motion carries unanimously. All right, next, discuss and approve Palace Business Solutions proposal for the Central Coast High School classroom furniture. Who's up for that one?
That would be me again.
Okay, Mr. Anderson.
So, yep, this is a Central Coast High School classroom furniture. We're just updating furniture in their current classrooms. They were old, decrepit. This is the new 21st century furniture that we started to put into some schools. We worked with Alan pretty closely to get what he wanted for the least amount of cost possible, but also get him what he needs to have instruction. Seems a little out of place now that we don't have the kids there, but when the kids come back, it'll be great.
All right. Any questions on this item? All right. Is any public comment on this item? No. All right. Is there a motion?
I move we approve Palace Business Solutions proposal for the Central Coast High School classroom furniture.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Ms. Miles and a second from Ms. Miramontes. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Grounds-Pepper,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Rudaskew,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire,
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. This next one I know I'm going to butcher. Discuss and approve is that Meteor education furniture quote for the health science library project at Marina Heights. Is that Mr. Anderson again?
Yes.
All right.
It is Mr. Anderson again, and surprisingly, we've actually are placing this order much earlier than we normally would. This project hasn't got out of DSA yet, but this is all the furniture we need for when it does come out, the exam tables and other equipment, scientific equipment as well. So this is more technical than just tables and chairs. This is more stuff you need for health sciences as well as their safety, their library project. So we're ordering this early. Meteor has agreed to store it for us. We figure it'll save us about 20% over if we ordered it a year from now. And because the storage was free, it seemed like the right thing to do.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this item? Any public comment on this item? All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion from Ms. Askew and a second from Ms. Miramontes. Have a roll call, please.
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Gramspacker,
Yeah.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Rudescu,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next, item
Thank you,
K.
everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. See you next time. Okay, discuss and approve memorandum of understanding with the National Center for Youth Law to mutually support the educational success of students experiencing homelessness and students in foster care. Dr. Dippendale.
Yes, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Everett, who will invite and introduce our guests. We're excited about the partnership that we've had with the National Center for Youth Law, and we'll share some of our progress as well as the plans going forward. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Everett.
Thank you, Dr. Diffenbaugh. Good evening, Board President Jennings, Board of Trustees. We're excited to bring this MOU before you tonight, as we have had a wonderful partnership with the National Center for Youth Law, as Dr. Diffenbaugh just mentioned. This partnership has really been to ensure that our most vulnerable youth, specifically our students experiencing homelessness, are getting one-to-one case management support to ensure their success. And we couldn't have done this without the support of the National Center for Youth Law. As you know, we are, as a district, supporting roughly 14% of our student population who's been identified as experiencing homelessness under the McKinney-Vento definition. So this is a very, very important work for us, and very proud of the efforts that we've done. I'm going to turn it over to Jessica Maxwell, the Deputy Director of Foster Ed with the National Center for Youth Law, which will give some more details about it and some information. So Jessica, if you're on, turn it over to you.
She is.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. Good evening, Board President Jennings, board members, Superintendent Diffenbaugh, and members of the community. I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Jessica Maxwell. I'm the Deputy Director of California Compassionate Systems at the National Center for Youth Law, formerly known as NCLE. Next slide, please. NCLE's Compassionate Systems Initiative, which is formally referred to as Foster Ed, works to create a reality where system-involved scholars can graduate from high school with a wide variety of possibilities and outcomes for their future. Next slide, please. Foster Ed is an evidence-informed model that has been incubated and sustained statewide in 2 other states and within the Santa Cruz County Office of Education here in California. We currently operate 4 demonstration sites across California, and we're in the beginning of our 3rd year in our demonstration site with Mpusd. To date, we have served over 98 students by providing them intensive case management and coaching services, and over 150 students with additional responsive services. Next slide, please. Our national model is built on a practice to policy framework that starts with student-centered engagement and moves to local and statewide advocacy on budget and legislative and policy issues. Next slide, please. Our Monterey demonstration site framework is guided by the following principles. We support students to build capacity for maintaining and enhancing relationships with the adults and themselves. We assist students in creating a community atmosphere that they feel safe engaging in. And we help students to increase their belief in themselves in order to strengthen their ability to work towards their goals and become effective self-advocates. Next slide, please. Can you just hit the next button, please? Looks like there's a time loop. Oh, apologies, you can stay there. Our educational liaisons, which we will have 1.5 FTE for the 2020-2021 academic year, will be co-located across Monterey high schools, in which they will partner with the Tier 2, Tier 3 meetings at each of the sites. They will be providing intensive case management and coaching services to between 20 to 25 students at any given time, and responsive services to other students to address immediate situations that result in barriers to meaningful engagement in their education. And our educational liaisons will support the post-secondary planning and transition for students for any seniors across any of the 4 high school sites. Central to our model is collecting evidence and data to support model iteration and sustainability. We do this by working collaboratively with research consultants to analyze educational data and administering social and emotional well-being surveys and a student experience survey. We are currently in the process of analyzing our year 1 demonstration site results, but I'd like to share some highlights with you today. Next slide, please. This data is based on the 2018-19 academic year. Data for the 19-20 academic year is not currently available. However, I'm pleased to report the following highlights. For students that engage with our resources and supports during the 2018 and 19 academic year, 85% of our seniors graduated from high school compared to 59% of students locally that are experiencing homelessness. And statewide, 81% of all students enrolled in California public schools. Locally, we developed a local school match data based on school districts, including districts within the Monterey County and San Benito County. Students that have engaged with our program also experience lower rates of school mobility and school moves by the time they reach their 12th grade year, and they have lower rates of chronic absenteeism. There, of course, are areas for improvement for these students. Our students, unfortunately, did have lower rates of A through G course completion and lower academic GPAs. However, this program is a work in progress. In terms of social emotional well-being survey results, our students experience large improvements in self-efficacy and future success towards future orientation within 6 months of receiving services from NICL. Students also reported substantial gains in the knowledge about future post-secondary educational opportunities, and specifically understanding about financial aid resources. We are in the process of finalizing a progress report that will highlight the full academic results as well as social and emotional results for students that were served in our program in the academic year 2018 and 19, and we look forward to sharing those results with you all. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. I would like to extend my gratitude again to the board members for the opportunity to present today, and I welcome any questions you have.
All right, board members, questions for Ms. Maxwell? Ms. Miramontes?
Thank you so much for your presentation, Jessica. I was just wondering what types of tools and practices you guys use for the student engagement.
That's a great question, board member. So some of the tools, we start off with student assessments once we initially get a referral. And those assessments are really social emotional assessments on their home needs and their family dynamics. And we use tools such as cognitive behavioral therapy techniques and interviewing students and other therapeutic tools to just help students identify things that are meaningful and important to them. Because our program is fully voluntary, we really work with students to identify what's important to them, particularly as it relates to their education. I will also say with our students here in Monterey, what we have learned is that these students have exceedingly high needs outside of their academic services. And so a lot of the work that we do early on within the first 3 months is referring students to local programs and resources that will either help stabilize their housing or help address some of their immediate needs, to things such as food, clothing, mental health concerns, and things of that nature. And then we work collaboratively with all of the adults in their lives, whether that is therapists, school site counselors, high school teachers, and family members, to ensure that the students feel successful and feel that they have a voice in the decisions being made on their behalf.
Wonderful, thank you. And it's really great to hear that's also voluntary, so they're more willing to do the process. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Miles?
I was just wondering if you might know when data for the 19 for the 1920 data might be coming out?
Thank you for that question, Board Member Miles. So we use two tools. We work with Mr. Donnie Everett on collecting some tools through the student information system, and we work with EdResults Partnership to collect data through CalPads Plus. The CalPads Plus data is not uploaded until about mid-October, and so we will be working with our consultants to analyze that data at the beginning of 2021.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Askew?
Yeah, thank you so much for the work you're doing with our district. I know how significant the needs of so many of our families are, and to hear you say that when you get a referral that so much of the initial time is spent just sort of meeting those most basic hierarchy of needs. It leads me to a question. You know, schools are asked to do so much for our families, and our students really aren't in a position to learn when they don't have stable housing or adequate nutrition or, you know, emotional security with adults in their life. Within the context of what is possible for a public school district to do, what are some of the additional things that you see us as a board being able to support that would make the lives of our students better and support the work that you're doing? Where are from a policy place where we say, where are some of those things that you think we need to be investing more in or focusing more on?
Thank you for that question, Board Member Askew. And I would say I have a really long list, but I will say that I first want to preface my answer with statewide, I don't think that we're doing enough to support students that are experiencing homelessness. California has about roughly 25% of the country's homeless students and does not put any funding into education dedicated to students experiencing homelessness. And so that is just quite challenging. And so I recognize that that makes it difficult for school districts to provide additional resources. I will say that is why Nickel started the foster ed model to really work with school districts to innovate practices. And I will say that across California, what we've seen is increases in each student population that we've worked with. So not only students experiencing homelessness, but students in foster care and students that are justice involved. And what we know, the one piece of tool is the relational capacity. Having students having access to adults that they feel that they can trust and have honest conversations with really impact educational outcomes, which is why we elevate this model. I will say that in the time of distance learning, what we have seen is that many students felt very confused and frustrated overall and dealt with some withdrawal. And so I think having more access to school-based mental health services would really be helpful. One of the things that we constantly hear and what you'll see reflected in our progress report from student quotes and family quotes is that they don't feel that anyone on campuses understands or identifies with their issues as they're facing housing instability. I would say the last piece is that it would be really helpful to have some dedicated resources for students that are unaccompanied, which we have taken a particular focus in the last school year with students. So those students are particularly vulnerable to disengagement in education. And so ensuring that they can have all barriers removed to actively engage in their education, and that might mean providing some waivers so that they can participate in extracurricular activities, or providing waivers so that they can keep their technology, their Chromebooks during the summer so that they can catch up on schoolwork, and really having strong, effective policies that reflect the credit recovery system will really be helpful for this population because they have had so many disruptions.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Maxwell?
I have some.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Gransbacher.
Thank you. So this is a great initiative, and thank you to the administration and to Jessica and EA Compassionate Systems for looking after our students. So I wanted to ask You mentioned the transitioning from post-secondary education. Do you track those students and their successes so that we can ensure that when they leave our school district, they don't lose access to the support systems that have helped them to be successful?
Thank you, board member. That is a great question. And so I will say that we do not close our services with students as they make the transition to post-secondary education or other vocational programs. In the case of students that are attending colleges or universities, particularly those that are local, so either MPC or Monterey Bay, we actually do a warm handoff with the EOP programs or the EOPS programs to ensure that the students feel that they have access to someone on that campus to support them. We will typically keep student cases open and check on them at a minimum of once a month, up to 6 months while they're enrolled in college, but it could even be more. For some students, we tend to keep them open if they're still trying to identify a vocational program until they have something that they are attached to that they feel is reflecting their educational goals.
Okay, Dr. Lusk?
Not a question, but I am so proud to know the depth of work that's being done to support our students in Mpusd. And it's a pleasure to meet you, Ms. Maxwell, and to hear about services that you're providing statewide. I look forward to connecting with you actually, to provide additional information for CSBA. I think this is incredible information that needs to be provided for more people, more districts throughout California. And I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lusk. I appreciate that. And I will say that it has been a mutual admiration with Mpusd. This district has been a complete, amazing partner, and it has just been an honor to work alongside the district these past 2 years. And as we're entering our 3rd year, I feel that we are armed with a lot of information to help us improve our services. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions for Ms. Maxwell? All right, board, this is an action item. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, no public comment. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
And I'll second that.
Have a motion from Dr. Lusk and a second from Ms. Askew. Can we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Grumspepper,
Yes.
Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Hill,
Aye.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Maxwell, for attending our meeting tonight. I
Excellent
really
job.
appreciate it.
Excellent job.
Excellent job. Thank you. All right, next, information items. Receive the district's 45-day 2020-2021 budget revision.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Altemeyer. We did note when we passed the budget that it was still in very unclear times with the state budget. So we have a little bit more clarity. And so Mr. Altemeyer will walk us through the new budget projections.
Good evening, board. As Dr. Diffenbaugh did state that the budget this year is very much in flux as we adopted our budget. The actual state budget wasn't signed by the governor until the 29th of June. So we're supposed to have a budget for the school district by July 1st. So we had to adopt a budget based on the information that we had from the May revise, which was much different than the actual adopted budget. And I'll walk you through that tonight. So here's the graphic that I show. Every time you're probably getting tired of seeing it. You notice there's not even a 45-day revised icon up there because we typically don't do one. The May revision is a really accurate budget in the past, at least the past 6 or 7 or so years. So we haven't had to do May revision, but this was a much different year. So in the education code, section 42127, it specifies a requirement that we adopt a budget by July 1st of the school year. But in that, there's also a section that says not later than 45 days after the governor signs the annual budget, the school district shall make available to the public review any revisions in revenues and expenditures. And so that's what we're doing this evening. There's nothing for the board to formally adopt. This is just public information. This will also be posted on the website. So the main differences between the January budget that the governor proposed, the May revision, and the enacted budget, you can see the early January budget before we were significantly impacted by the coronavirus. We were looking at about a $1.2 billion change across the state to the LCFF funding. When the May revision came out, that revised down significantly. We were looking at a $6.5 billion reduction, and that's what we based our budget on. The enacted budget didn't have actually any cuts, but it didn't add any new money. And we'll come back to the term cuts, but as far as the base LCFF funding, we didn't receive any reduction. Overall Proposition 98 guarantee, you can see that did stay for 18-19, that was pretty accurate. For 19-20, it was $81.6 billion, but that was revised down. The May revision to 77.4, and it stayed pretty close to 77.7. And then 2021, the current fiscal year, in January, we're looking at $84 billion for Proposition 98 minimum guarantee. And that was revised down significantly to $70.5 billion, and we ended up close to that number, about $70.9 billion. The statutory COLA, it did fall to 2.31%, that's where it landed, but we did not receive that COLA, so that COLA was unfunded. And then we didn't receive any new discretionary funds, or were none proposed in January, nor in the May revised, and in the enacted budget, there was no one-time discretionary funds. So remember the legislature said we didn't receive a cut, but in actuality, the 2.31% COLA, which is a statutory COLA required to be given to us, that COLA was not enacted, and so that means that the LCFF funding formula did not receive that, nor any of the add-ons, the home to school transportation, or any of the other add-ons. So while the state says that they didn't give us cuts, they actually did, because we didn't receive that mandatory or the statutory COLA of 2.31%. I mean, as you know, every year the school district's costs go up regardless. And so we have additional costs for STRS and PERS, we have additional costs for step and column, utilities, those sorts of things. So if we have a flat funding year, that still means that we're losing, we have less money to work with each year. The other big item that came out of the governor's signed budget were deferrals. And so this is just a way for the government to say, hey, we're not going to cut you. We're going to give you the money we said we're going to give you. We're just not going to give it to you when you expect it. And so what they're doing, this is a cash flow problem. So as the state collects revenue, there's different stages throughout the year that happens. So what they're saying is that we're going to give you the money later in the year when you expect it. So for this fiscal year, we did receive the last 2 months of 1920. That was deferred to October. And then the February, March, April, May, June apportionments for this fiscal year will all be deferred into the next fiscal year. We have a plan in place for short-term borrowing to bridge that gap, but this is just another mechanism that the state has to not cut us, but they're giving us the money later than when we normally would anticipate getting. The other major component that's significantly changed our budget was the STRS and PERS buy down that the governor enacted in the budget. That essentially reduced the rate that we contribute for STRS and PERS for the 2021 school year and the 21-22, which helps us so that there's less outlay or less expenses on that. So that did help the district on our expense side. And then the last major piece is we didn't get any new one-time discretionary funding, but we did receive a significant amount of federal funding through the CARES Act. And that total for the state was about $1.65 billion for elementary and secondary school emergency relief fund, which you also might see as ESSER. There was $355 million for the governor's emergency education relief fund, GER, that's my favorite one. And then the $4.4 billion for the coronavirus relief fund, CRF. And these were all money that the districts will receive across the state to help offset learning loss mitigation and things that are directly impacted the school districts by the coronavirus. So what does that look like for our finances? The first column there, we have the July 1 budget. That was the budget that was adopted by the board. You can see that our beginning balance has stayed the same. The revenues, though, this is where the major difference is. You can see that the LCFF sources, we were looking at $91.8 million. That's with the 10% reduction. In actuality, we had about we ended up with revenue about $99.9 million. So that's very good news for us. We didn't get that cut. So that's the major difference between the July 1 adopted budget and the 45-day revision you have in front of you. The other big difference here is if you can see on the federal revenues, if you can see the July 1, we had 2.5, and then that went down to 888. The reason for that is it's not lost revenue. We just had to shift that from the unrestricted federal revenues over to the restricted. And that's reflected here. So you can see the federal revenues. July 1, we were estimating $5.8 million. We ended up with 15.6, and that's the CARES and the other ESSER dollars that I outlined in the previous slide. And that's the major difference. There were some slight revenue increases from other state revenues. That's the governor's fund directly tied to learning loss. And then we had some other local revenues. But that's the biggest change on the restricted side of the budget. So what does that look like when we factor in the multi-year? So the first column there is 1920. That's not how we'll end the year. We'll be bringing back to you a 45-day budget revision in September. However, this is where we this is where the most updated information that we have as of now. But really, if we're focusing on the current fiscal year +2, if you remember back when we did the adopted budget, we were looking at close to $20 million of reductions over 3 years with that 10% reduction to the funding that the state had proposed. That things have significantly changed. And you can see that we still have to make cuts. We're looking at about $1.8 million starting in 21-22, and then an additional 1.8 in 22-23, or keeping the 1.8 going. However, this does factor in, and I wanted to be completely transparent. I wanted to provide the best and most accurate information. This does include the proposals for management and certificated, the MBTA proposals that the board approved previously this evening. So we wanted to make, this is the accurate budget projection with those two bargaining units included in the salary increases. So overall, we do make a positive third year with that in there. But I just really wanted to show what the big difference is when we looked at what the July 1st budget is and what the 45-day or what the actual adopted budget looks like. And then lastly, the enrollment. So let me go back to the slide here. So if you can look at the 2021 school year, we were projecting enrollment this year at about 9,686 students. That's what we projected. As of, well, this was yesterday. It's a little bit lower now. But as of yesterday, when I prepared the slide, your enrollment was at 9,424. So we're a couple hundred students down from what we projected. So there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, the coronavirus, students are opting out. Some of the younger grades aren't coming to school. But I did want to illustrate for the board that our enrollment is significantly lower than we actually have projected, which we do have part of the budget. We do have a hold harmless so that this won't impact our next fiscal year. But if this trend continues, the declining enrollment is accelerating faster than we had previously projected. So if you look at where we were projecting our enrollment, in 1920, we had 9,833 kids. We're currently at 9,424, where we projected to be at 9,666. In 2021-22 school year, we were down to 9,478. and in 22-23 about 9,331. So we're somewhere in between where we were projecting we would be in 21-22, 22-23. So the next steps, I kept this in here because I wanted to illustrate the board did adopt the budget on June 23rd, but it wasn't signed into law until the 29th. And that's just to illustrate the reason why this was so late this year. The budgets were so far off. And then in August, we're bringing the 45-day back, and then in September, you will see the unaudited actuals, which will be the look back at the 19-20 fiscal year and actually how we did. And I'll end with this. School Services of California always puts out these great cartoons, so I'll give them credit for this. But you can see 19-20, we're heading toward the fiscal cliff here. In 2021, that's supposed to be the governor. He gave us a little bridge, but 21-22, we're really not certain how this is going to end up. And so we're heading toward that fiscal cliff. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, board, questions for Mr. Altemeyer? Anybody? Okay.
I had
All
a
right.
Yeah, I'll comment, but I don't like that ending slide.
We need another bridge.
Okay, Ms. Graham-Tucker?
Thank you. So when that slide went at the beginning, when you had the keep going back, it was like, yeah, you just passed it, I think. Yeah, here. So we're losing 6 million, or that's for the state, but I did the calc for us directly. So what we're actually net losing and what we're gaining. Can you tell us that figure? In millions.
In millions.
So that's reflected here. So you can see what we had projected July 1 was $91.8 million in revenue. Reductions from the main region. But 5-day, which includes that the non-cuts, we'll call it, that puts us at 99.8. So that's additional, what is that? Close to $8 million. In additional revenue for the 2021 school year, just on the LCFF fund.
Okay. Is that one-time money or will that be ongoing?
That's part of the funding formula. So that's the money that we're allocated based on the funding formula. Now, we do have a hold harmless in our ADA, so they'll fund us at that same level for 2020, 21, 22. But we don't know what 21, 22 will look like. So as of now, it's ongoing, but that could change.
Okay, so the rest of my question was, so on July 1, we cut from our original projection more than $8 million, right? I mean, originally before going back to January, we were projecting next year LCFF total revenue of how much?
July 1, we were projecting total revenue of $91.8 million. We had that
was in January? That was in January?
Sorry, July 1.
Yeah, so January, so go back, I think, one or a few again.
Right. It sounds really good. We get $8 million, but we have to remember we first cut way more than like almost 15 or more than 10 million, as I recall, in between January and the July revision because of our fear or the initial impact from the COVID.
It compounds.
Yeah.
So in January, the budget that you received didn't include any figures from January because the May revision was the most up-to-date information that we had for a budget adoption in June. We had initially, it was around $20 million projecting the cut over 3 years because that $8 million reduction would have continued on for multiple years, so it compounds. So if you factor that in over 3 years, that's the reason why the cuts looked more significant at the May revision because that reduction in funding was carried for the current year and the out fiscal years as well.
Okay, so what we're saying is our budget is back to normal, to where it was when we were projecting in January, essentially.
No, it's not.
Okay.
There still is a reduction in funding. I think this will illustrate it a little bit better. I don't have the previous multi-year here, but if you look at the LCFF revenue line, do you see where it says 99 for 2021, $99.8 million? And then that revenue carries through. It carries through the 21, 22, 22, 23. The same is true when we have a reduction in the revenue. So that reduction of $8 million was carried 2021, and then it continued on to 21, 22, and then 22, 23. And that's where that large deficit came. We're still projecting that we're going to have to make reductions of about $3.5 million over the course of the next 2 years. So we're not out of the woods there as far as looking for budget reductions or to balance the budget.
Okay, and those reductions are purely from changes in LCFF. It does not include our reduction in enrollment attendance students.
That's correct, and that's the other factor that here we have a higher enrollment count. But as I show on this slide, that our enrollment decline is accelerating faster this year by the tune of around a little over 200 students. So that will change those figures if it continues that way.
Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Altmeyer? Go ahead, Dr. Diffenbaugh.
So just want to add, because we get all the superintendents are on a weekly call, and we get to speak with Mike Fine, who's the director of the FICMAC, who is really tuned into finance. And he just warned us. He said, you know, the deferrals are better than cuts, but not something that we should be too happy about, because the state can only defer so much money. And essentially what they did was they went right to almost the limit of deferrals this year in order to save cuts from schools. So if there isn't a federal infusion to bring that need for deferrals down, to backfill or trigger off, as the governor says, then next year, when we don't have enough revenue to pay the bills, we won't have any room to have more deferrals, because the state already went virtually to the limit into the deferrals. So that's just something to keep in mind is, you know, we're super thankful for deferrals except for cuts, but it truly was, unless there's a federal deal that brings more money for schools and more money for state government, then we're already at our limit of deferrals, and even he mentioned the possibility of just a tremendous reduction next year. So just want to keep that in mind.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Altmeyer or Dr. Diffenbaugh on this item? All right. Was there any public comment on this item? Okay. All right. Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate it. You don't have to like it. Okay, receive and discuss Associate Superintendent of Education Services job description.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
In my binder.
No.
So as we're reviewing job descriptions, these are just an update to Ms. Crystal McIntosh's role, just to reflect what she's currently doing. It doesn't change anything, working days or anything. It just changes to the job description.
All right. Are there any questions on this item? Ms. Miles? Go ahead, Ms. Miles.
Thank you. So what I printed out is all, there's no color differentiation. Can you speak to what the changes were?
Yeah, she sees a lot of things. So
Okay.
under the definition of the job description, we just wanted to make sure that there was a alignment in the English language learners, that there's some components of special education that fall under ed services, as well as early child education, pretty much anything TK-12 that falls under curriculum and instruction. But for future, I can definitely highlight the changes in blue and red.
Okay, now that would be helpful because as things change, then that would highlight, why the need for the update.
Absolutely.
So that would be very helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Miles. Any other questions on this item? All right, seeing none. This is an information item, so it will come back to us the next meeting for approval, and if nothing comes up between now and then, on the consent, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, we'll now move to receive and discuss Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources job description.
Similarly, this one, we were operating under the executive director of HR. So this is just an updated, took a lot of what was in there and just updated to reflect currently what we're doing as well in the HR role.
Okay, any questions on this item? Ms. Miles?
Okay, similarly, is there anything outstandingly different that was added or subtracted?
Mainly the classification in terms of the position. It used to be the executive director of human resources, so now it's an assistant superintendent. It's been like that for the past 3 years. It just was not reflected on the job description.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this item or comments? All right, again, information item, so it will come back to us on the next agenda in consent if nothing comes up between now and next meeting. All right, we're going to now move to superintendent's report. Dr. Dittenbaugh.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. We've been very busy, so I'm excited to give superintendent's report this evening. Wanted to start off, I hope that you were able to attend the kickoff, and the back to school kickoff was different this year because it was virtual, but we had still had everyone logged in, still kept it student centered, and heard from student voice and their panel, heard from Dr. Nunez, and we received a lot of positive feedback from staff regarding this, that they missed the excitement of being in Seaside High's gym together. They especially missed the drum line, but that they loved hearing from our students. As you know, we have started an expanded learning opportunity for children of Mpusd employees, and that started this week. So just a little examples of students and our after-school academy staff, and we're really taking the precaution. You can see the more than 6 feet distance between folks, even when they're outside, keeping distance, doing activities outside. So far, it's only the second day, but I've checked in on all sites of both days, and it seems to be going very smoothly. And I've heard from some employees just texting me, thanking me for thanking the district for putting this in place because it's very helpful to them. Also wanted to highlight the parent workshops that are happening this week. Some of the feedback we got when we did the town halls in the summer from parents was need for more technology and need for more support on how to support their children, especially emotionally, so with anxiety and other issues. So last week we had a series of technology webinars, whether it was Parent Square, Google Classroom, how to navigate those tools. This week we're focusing on social emotional health and support. Tonight we had Mr. Everett along with Dr. Susan Swick, who is the head of the Ohanas Center at CHOMP or Montage. Give a presentation on supporting students with anxiety. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll have supporting students with distance learning with our staff, both our licensed marriage family therapists will be supporting. And then on Thursday, we have Justin Stokes, who's our family service specialist at Foothill Elementary and has been instrumental in our Parenting Partners program, talk about parenting through distance learning. So trying to provide supports, and we'll also continue to talk with and get feedback from parents on what their needs are during this difficult time and try to provide supports as we go. So this won't just be a one-time thing. I wanted to let you know how excited I am for all the learning that's happening across the district. This week, over the last 2 weeks, I should say, we've had over 150 sessions, 60 different facilitators. So these are our own teachers and staff members presenting to their peers, and have 581 attendees. So this is just an example of some of the things we've offered: Screencastify and YouTube, Ready Reading, TCI Social Studies, Meeting for Art Teachers, Google Meets, STEM Scopes for new teachers, Math 2, Power Standards and Competencies, and middle and high school counselors, Tools for Distance Counseling. So it's really a CTE in there as well. So working really hard, and our teachers have been really great at just lots of information to absorb, and really hanging in and continuing to put their best foot forward as we enter this this challenging time and launch full distance learning on the 17th. I also wanted to announce, so it's really a CTE in there as well. So working really hard, and our teachers have been program, which will partner with really great community-based organizations, lots of information to absorb, and really hanging in and continuing to put their best foot forward as we enter this this challenging time and launch full distance learning on the 17th. City of Seaside Rec Department. I also wanted to announce, so it's really a CTE in there as well. So working really hard, and our teachers have been program, which will partner with really great community-based organizations, lots of information to absorb, and really hanging in and continuing to put their best foot forward as we enter this this challenging time and launch full distance learning on the 17th. City of Seaside Rec Department. I also wanted to announce, so it's really a CTE in there as well. So working really hard, and our teachers have been Marina Vista and their own Monterey Center. So we're able to service with all those partners and all those spots. We estimate being able to serve over 300 of our most vulnerable students. So we're very proud of that, and looking to that to start August 31st. At the end of the month. There's lots of logistics and needs to be put in place with our partners, but we're getting it going. I wanted to update folks on special education testing because I know that this is also a big need across the district, and there's a number of evaluations and testing that needs to happen as part of individuals' IEPs. We have requested for the county health director to give approval to allow us to do one-on-one assessments with our students. Unfortunately, at this time, the county health director is not approving individual school or district applications for approvals for this type of testing. So we are waiting on the state guidance to proceed. The health director has indicated that when the state guidance comes in, we will be able to proceed with that guidance. So we're continuing to work with our special education teachers and school psychologists and staff to develop plans as best we can, to adjust timelines where we can, but know that that's something we're continuing to advocate for because we know how important it is for our students with individual education plans. So wanted to give you an update on all those items. I'm extremely proud of our staff and how we've responded, and as superintendent and also as a parent of 2 Mpusd students, just seeing how excited my kids were to log on and see their teachers on Monday really brought some life back into our household, and certainly for me was a shot in the arm, because that's really what it's all about, is to see kids excited, love of learning, feeling connected and wanting to be involved. So I thank everyone in the district for everything they've done to get us this far, and we know that this is just the beginning. But we are in this together, and we're better together, and we'll continue to work hard to improve. So thank you, and that's my report this evening.
All right, great, thank you. All right, we are now communication from board members. I'm going to just go down the line. Dr. Lutz, communication.
I've received a lot of communication. I just want to kind of give you a heads up. The annual education conference for CSBA is now totally virtual. That information rolled out to us yesterday afternoon, and more information will be coming for those who have registered and those that have a desire to register virtually. The coalition information that I shared would be available to you last week or at the last board meeting just rolled out again yesterday, and so I'll be forwarding that information. I sent the links to Denise for the Thursday meeting on ethnic studies. And it's a lot of information. Discard it if you don't want it for colleagues. But the meeting will be from 10 to 5, and the model is somewhere in that window. I want to say to Dr. Diffenbaugh, this may not be the time, congratulations on a job well done. You, in spite of this pandemic, in spite of all that is challenging us, you've done an excellent job leading our team in Mpusd. That is, I commend you personally, and I'm sure all of us as board members have comments that we will share. But as I listen to trustees throughout the state, this has been a difficult task to take on. And you've made it smooth with your team. And I'm sure your mom appreciated your acknowledgement of all that she has done to bring you to this point. And so on behalf of this community, the Seaside community, this district, as I've heard it from parents all over, thank you for a job well done.
Okay. Ms. Askew, communication.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see here, a couple just points I want to make as the 2020 census deadline has been moved to the end of September, so we're down to our final days for students and families to be counted. Seaside is one of the hard to count communities, and we are behind where we need to be in terms of the number of people in Seaside who have participated so far in the census. So I want to just put that call out to action on behalf of everyone who's listening. I participated in the Children's Council meeting on Monday, where the issue of SPED testing and some of the conflicts exist. So I did raise the issue with that group, and they are all working in partnership to try to figure out how the state will put guidance out around how we can ensure that we continue assessments for children. I met with the Housing Coalition, the Monterey Peninsula Housing Coalition on, I don't know, Saturday morning, and we talked with United Way about some of their ADU and housing policies and continuing work to identify locations in the community where we can support affordable housing for families and workforce locally. And then I also met with a group that's been meeting every Sunday, Moms for a Change, who talked a lot about the policy, just the reality that so many of the pressures that are coming down on workers right now are hitting low income workers and hitting women. And with distance learning, where we now expect moms primarily to take on the brunt of that emotional and capacity to manage their lives while they're working. The long-term inequities for women who choose to fall out of the workforce in order to meet that responsibility, and the long-term wage loss. We already have a wage inequity in our country, and we're now looking at intensifying the long-term wage disparities that have existed for a long time with our lowest earning workers, and those typically are women of color. So trying to really think through where there are policy options to advocate. And Mpusd came up in that conversation as someone who's leading the effort to make sure that different options are available to families with our childcare that's on site. And then my last plug is just a lot of families put off making their well child exams for their children during the first 6 months of the pandemic. And I know my son had his dental cleaning was put off by 6 months, so we just got that. So if you haven't made your appointments to get your kid in to see the doctor, go ahead and get on the phone. Your doctors are seeing children for well child exams and dental visits, and we want to make sure that we keep that prevention at forefront of our minds for our kids.
Okay, Ms. Miles, communication.
I have nothing this time, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Miramontes, communication.
Thank you. I definitely want to just commend the cabinet, PK, for all that you have been doing during this pandemic and making sure we can have as smooth as a start as possible. My son started kindergarten, so I really was interested in seeing how that approach would be taking place for new families, maybe that don't have kids in the system yet. So it was just a really good relief to know that it was such a slow start for the kindergartners. My son gets to have a one-on-one with his teacher tomorrow and review all the Chromebook and the process of that. And last week we got to pick up our Chromebook. So knowing that I had this 2-week window just to really get ready really helped a lot. So I appreciate that so much. But yeah, I'm just really excited to see how we're going to continue our communications together and moving forward as a board. I think that's also very important. It's so great to know that we have different opinions and points of views and that we can come together and talk about it. I think that's very important as well. And I agree with Wendy about the dental work and getting those in. My son just got his done. As Medi-Cal recipient, it's very hard and unfortunate that we have to go all the way to Salinas, which is like the only location in the whole area. Santa Cruz goes there too, to be able just to be seen by a dental pediatrician. So just wanted to make that plug and idea of seeing how we can increase that support for our low-income families that have to go through Medi-Cal to get just quality services. I think it's very important too. But thank you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gramsbacher, communication.
Thank you. So I was able to attend the opening presentation at the beginning of the school year. I thought it was great, especially the questions submitted by the students in the discussion with teachers as to how to address specific problems that they encountered in the beginning of the pandemic at the end of the school year, and when they were introduced first time to distance learning. And I wanted to add that this week in the, my volume is way down. I wanted to add that this week in the Wall Street Journal, they reported that in Boston, 20% of the students dropped out when they switched to 100% remote learning. I think we had an attrition of what, 2 to 3% is what we ended up with. So that's an indication that we really are leading, I think, nationally with the rollout of distance learning, and I think we have something to report. Get the word out when we're talking to CSBA. I don't think we should limit ourselves to the state of California. I really think that all the work that we've done the last 4 to 5 years in integrating technology into our curriculum and making sure students had access to technology, that our school sites had the internet connectivity and the bandwidth to support all the students and staff at the same time have here really paid off. It's a huge challenge, but I think, Dr. Vickenbach, you've been very, very successful. And so we have challenges going forward, but I think we're in a really, really good spot. So thank you.
All right. Dr. Whitmire, communication.
Thanks. Just a couple of quick comments. I really enjoyed the back to school kickoff last week. It was great. It was a great program. And then, it's only been a couple of days this week since we started the synchronous learning with my 2 kids at Monte Vista, but I already see the difference between the emergency online instruction that we had in the spring and what is now a fully developed distance learning situation. The teachers seem more adept at the technology. Their virtual classrooms are very well developed. The way they support the students in learning how to use the technology has been amazing. I was really surprised and impressed by how little my first grader needed my support. I mean, I've been sitting next to him as he's been in his classes, but it's been really excellent. So I saw Cresta over PK's shoulder. So Cresta, the elementary, at least at Monte Vista, my kids' experience has been really good so far, 2 days in. So I'm feeling really optimistic about the school year. And then my last thought was just that, normally at this time of year, we would be buying school supplies, and I usually, buy some for the kids and then extras for the class. And this year I feel like I don't know how I can help, and I don't know what our students out there and my kids' classmates might need. So if there's a way to funnel information about students that teachers and students need, do they need a computer mouse? Do they need a pad for their chair? Anything like that they might need to do their learning from home. I would love a way to get that information organized and out to anyone who might want to volunteer to contribute. So if there's any ideas or processes out there, I'd love to hear it.
All right. I'm sure that somebody will get us information on how we can help the students need something, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I'm just going to echo what Dr. Lusk and a couple others said is, you guys are awesome. Thank you. I had to watch it in archive, but the opening, because I was in another meeting, and I was impressed. It seems it went really well, and you guys did a great job. But thanks for all you do for students in our communities. All right, so now we will move to board request. We'll go ahead and go Dr. Whitmire, board request.
None that I can think of.
Okay. Ms. Gramsbacher, board request.
Yes, I do have one.
Okay.
I'd like to have a review as soon as possible on the health care plans that our staff have and how the services that have been added to deal with COVID-19. The leave, I understand there's paid leave if somebody becomes sick, so that if our staff do fear that they are sick and have the virus, they know what to do. They know who to talk to for their health care. And like, I understand there's variance of our network based on which plan people have. So I think that would be very helpful if we could articulate that. Thank you.
Okay, got that. Everybody good with that? Having that as a information item? Yeah, okay. All right. So we'll make sure we get that on the agenda as soon as possible. Ms. Miramontes, board request.
I was wondering how I can purchase one of those Realize, Reimagine, and Reunite lanyards that I saw floating around. Those are pretty cool. But besides that, I don't have any board requests.
We'll get you one. We'll get you a t-shirt too.
I'll take care of it. Okay, everybody's like, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Miramontes. Ms. Miles, sorry, we are on board request.
I have nothing to request.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Askew, board request.
I do have a few board requests just for brief updates at future board meetings. One of the things I'm hearing from parents is concern about truancy and what that looks like this year and what truancy referrals might mean and how just generally how all that coordination is occurring. Another request I'd like to make is some information, maybe a little bit more in depth about the independent study option that is available through Mpusd. I know that I'm hearing from a lot of parents who are looking into the option to opt out of structured synchronous education and trying to understand how to form their own homeschool, whatever they have to do to have a homeschool through the state. And I keep telling them to talk to their principal about independent study as a choice that might be available to them. But I do think it would be helpful for me to know more about what we're offering and what we can maybe do to boost our communication out into the community about that so that we don't lose these students as Mpusd families. I appreciate the SPED update that you gave. I do think maybe just a little bit more information about how many students do we have waiting for assessments, what kind of SPED services are we providing, how are we meeting the needs. I've heard from other parents who really are struggling with their special needs students and utilizing their own resources to provide backup care at home and with their personal resources. So I just love to get some more updates on that at some point. The presentation tonight from our foster ed folks talked about unaccompanied youth within our homeless count. And it's an interesting category that I hadn't ever really put a lot of thought into, but at some point, maybe an update about how many unaccompanied youth we have and what their specific needs are would be helpful. And then my last request, so that would be just information coming back to us at some point. And then my last request would be, I know the census is really trying to outreach into Seaside. If we have any employees who have capacity this month to do outreach calls in coordination with the census, it would be possibly one way that we can support not undercounting our most vulnerable community members while also maintaining control of our own data and not having to share that with census workers, but just reminding people that they can do the census. There's training available. So I'm just planting that seed for the district. But that's all I've got for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. So truancy, you good? You got everything?
I got
Everybody okay with all that? The only thing I have a question about is is the census data and our employees. I don't think that would be appropriate, but can you expand on what your thought is with that, Ms. Askew?
Yeah, so there's a whole number of strategies that the census team is working on to reach people, to remind them to do their census. There's a lot of rules in place, there's confidentiality in place, to the degree that we can utilize the relationship that we have with people in our community to let them know that the census is safe, it's confidential, and the information collected by the census fundamentally brings back resources into our community. So we have teachers who are trusted messengers of information in the community who can be promoting that their families take the census if they haven't already. We also have access to student data where district employees could be doing outreach calls, potentially to let our families know that the census is important, and if they have any questions or need assistance completing their census, who to reach out to, who can help them with that. There's partnerships with the city. There's a conversation happening at the County Office of Education. We received a presentation, and given that we now have potentially classified staff who aren't being fully utilized for different on-campus purposes, the thought would be that without sharing any district data, we could have our own employees doing outreach on some level to support the census efforts.
Okay. Go ahead, Dr. Lusk.
I see, Dr. Diffenbaugh, you're kind of shaking your head in agreement. Can we directly work with the census component and stay in our lane as a district employee or what have you?
Yeah,
I'm
so.
just gonna put it like that.
Sure, yeah, so if it's an employee, we would, our employees, if they were to volunteer they would have to volunteer to be a census, person, but in terms of, we call home to say, hey, do you fill out for your free and reduced lunch form, or did you fill out your emergency card? And I think we could potentially include, have you filled out the census as part of kind of our follow-up. I can check and make sure, but I think.
Want us to be clear.
Yeah, I think that as long as we're providing the information, I think that it could work.
Okay.
Okay. As long as you think you handle it. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm just saying if we can look into it. I'm not giving direction. I'm asking that it be looked into as an option and what possibilities might exist to utilize district resources to support encouraging people to take the census. Our employees cannot take the census for people or gather that information. There are very strict rules and limitations. We would be looking to promote the census in every way possible over the next month, so that we don't end up with an undercount that shortchanges our community vital resources over the next decade.
Absolutely, and I support that.
Okay, now that you put it that way, I get it. All right. Okay, perfect. So you got all the info on that one? All right, Dr. Lusk, this is board request.
I had a call from a parent over the weekend who mentioned the fact that advanced placement classes had been eliminated at Monterey High School. I didn't think that was accurate, so I'm just putting it out there to you and asking that you would clarify what courses are offered at all of our secondary schools. And I'm thinking college prep, honors, advanced placement, and nothing has been deleted because of the International Baccalaureate program at Monterey High. In other words, that advanced placement track is still in place at Monterey High. So if you could just clarify the master schedule matrix, as far as the course offerings that we have for us as the board, and so the public can be aware of it as well. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
So an information item.
Information only, yeah.
Okay.
But to clarify for some of the parents out there that may not really know that we are uniform at all of our secondary schools and that advanced placement has not been eliminated at Monterey High in particular and replaced by the diploma program.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
everybody good with that? Yeah, okay, all right, great. Okay, so that's board requests, so advanced planning, the next meeting is August 25th. Basically right where you are. So
Okay.
is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I have a motion from Dr. Lusk. Is there?
I'll second that.
I have a second from, who was that?
It was Wendy.
Thank you.
Oh,
I apologize, Miss Askew.
geez.
I didn't recognize your voice for a second. Motion from Dr. Lusk, second from Miss Askew. May I have a roll call, please?
Board Member Veronica Miramontes,
Aye.
Board Member Alana Miles,
Aye.
Board President Tom Jennings,
Aye.
Board Vice President Deborah Grounds-Pepper,
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Betty Lusk,
Aye.
Board Member Wendy Rudescu,
Aye.
Like 4 times.
Board Member Dr. Amanda Whitmire.
Aye.
Mom, are you done?
I am. That's my last thing. I am. Right, guys? We're done.
Yes, she's done now. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.